Have you ever wondered how to write your name in block letters? I'm going to show you a neat trick to learn how to make any letter or number or symbol into a block letter. Block letters are different than what people tend to call bubble letters. A bubble letter literally looks like a bubble. It has a shiny highlight on it, it's puffy, it looks stretched, and it looks something like you'd see a balloon animal looking. But a block letter is more geometric. It has corners and straight lines and curves where letters have their natural curves. And I'm going to show you how to make a block letter now. So instead of putting a name on this paper, I am simply going to use the word teacher. And so that is going to allow you to see the different ways curvy and straight letters can be turned into block letters from a simple line letter. Here we go. First, I want to think about the size my word needs to start off to be. The word teacher has a lot of letters, so I'm going to use my finger to trace the letters out on my paper to see how big I should make them and make sure they fit. T, E, A, C, H, E, and I went off my paper. So that means I have to start a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit more to the side of the paper. Okay, T, E, A, C, H, E, R. I just figured out that my letters need to be about this tall, except for my T, which can be a little bit bigger. So here we go. Using my pencil and little sketch lines, very lightly, I'm going to make my letter. I don't want to press hard because I am going to erase these lines later. T, E, A, C, H. It's hard when you have two E's. They don't always match, but that's okay. I'm going to go back. I'll be able to fix these later. R. It's the great thing about when you're making art. You can always go back and adjust. So now, turning something into a block letter, you want to thicken up every one of these lines. And instead of having a simple line, it's going to be an outline around it. So you think of it like an outline like that. I'll show you what to do, starting with the T. The rule is everywhere you have the end of a line, you're going to cap it off with a line that shows you how thick you actually want the letter to end up being. I think that's a pretty good width of a letter. And that means I am going to put a cap at the end of every line. You'll do that for all of these. I'll show you how. And then start outlining around the middle line. Use those sketch lines so you can get controlled, small, little lines to begin with, and you can control the direction. If you do a hard line all at once, you can't really control that as well. But if you do a little at a time, you can certainly control where it goes. Okay, so now I've got an outline T. Here's where the magic happens. I erase the line in the middle, and now I've got myself a block letter. Isn't that great? Okay, but you're probably wondering how we do a curvy line like this, or a curvy letter. So, same rule applies where we have the end of a line, but here's where you can have some fun and be creative. You also want to really watch the shape of your letter and make sure that it looks good. So I'm outlining around my E. I'm trying to say the same distance, parallel all the way around, using my little sketch lines. And I'm going to hold off on doing this part right here for a minute. So I've got this part of the E done. Sometimes it helps to just erase that. And now you can see how thick it is. And I'm gonna think about the top right here and think, I want the top to be nice and thick. Now, that's pretty thick right there. You see that? If I left this alone, that is not the same width as this. This is about half the width. So what I can do is continue up from this line right here, but think about how to make this thicker, right here, this thicker. Keep this the same width as this, relatively. You're doing this by hand, so don't feel like you have to do it perfectly. You don't. Absolutely not. Okay, so there you go. Do you see that? I'll do it again with the A. I bet you're wondering how I'm gonna work with this A that's so close to this E. Okay, watch this. Here we go. I'm also noticing my E is about this high, so I'm gonna cap my A a little higher. Come down here, cap my A down here. Bring my outline. It's actually gonna be something that's gonna run into the E. Look at that. Now remember the width right here? We're gonna apply that same width over here. Here's where those sketch lines come in real handy. And you're gonna see this as a rectangle right here. This as a rectangle. So imagine it had a line straight down. That's where you wanna put the line for the inside of your A. Or anytime you have a letter, think of a capital P, think of a lowercase or an uppercase D. That is how that could work. Okay, C. You can also see, that I'm making adjustments to my letters as I'm going. I'm actually using the line right there, see that? Because it lines up with the bottom of these letters. I didn't want this to go lower. So this is where, as an artist, you just gotta use your eyes and ask yourself, am I making this look right? Don't just do something for the sake of doing it. Do it because it looks the way you want it to look. You can break your own rules. Oh, this one actually worked to the original rule I was showing you with the letter T. Keeping it thick, same width as my other letters. Cap it. Outline it. There we go. Looking good, letter H. There we are. You don't always have to erase the inside line, but I like to do that so that I can see if it's looking good or not. Okay, here's my letter E. I like where the bottom is compared to these letters, so it's kind of close to where I was starting, and that's okay. I'm okay with it running into the H. I want to look at my other letter E and how tall it was and think about making this one about as tall and about the same size as that one. Look at the bottom where this line is. Line up the bottom of that right there. Look at the curve. Make this curve match. These are all the things you want to just keep checking, especially when you have the same letter in a word. If you have a double letter, you really want to be careful of that. You don't want your E's to look completely different from one another. So remember when I drew this word just to begin with, just to get the idea down on the page? And look at how much it has changed already. And that's okay. That's what's going to happen. It is completely natural. You just can't stay married to this idea that you have to stick with your lines, because if you do, you might end up with something you don't really love. Oh, look at that. That lined up right there. All right, I erase. This takes some practice too. I am not the best block letter maker in the entire world, but if I go slowly and I use the little sketch lines, it will turn out looking okay. And that's the idea with that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to make a fun little pattern around it. And what we're gonna do with that pattern later is we're gonna color it in with a color pattern. So we're gonna add some rhythm which is a great art term. We're gonna add rhythm by having this movement of line around our word. Here we go. Why not? And I want each one of these lines, carefully taking my time. These lines are going to be a half an inch or so away from each other. If you get off of your pattern, or it starts to evolve, see how mine has a bigger part right here than down here? Why not? It's okay. When you finish, you're going to outline this whole thing with some black Sharpie. But you're not going to do it until you give it your final check with your eyes, and your pencil, and your eraser, and you're completely satisfied. Because the worst thing you could do as an artist is just say, yeah, it's okay. And settle for something you don't really love, and then invest so much time later in the coloring and the fixing and the tracing. And if you didn't really love it, you weren't totally satisfied with it to begin with, you're gonna be upset with yourself that you wasted so much time with coloring it and adding all of the finishing touches if it wasn't to the level of quality you wanted it to be. So why would you do that to your future self? It's worth it to just take a few minutes. Don't be in a hurry, don't be in a rush to finish it, because you can work at your own pace. There we go. All right. So I've got all my outlines on there. I think they're pretty good. I will go back and look at them again before I completely trace over this with black marker. But when you are totally satisfied, that's the next thing I'd love for you to please do. Trace your entire picture with your black Sharpie marker. I'm not going to trace the whole picture right now, everybody. I'm just going to do one letter because I can show you what happens with the one. Give it a second to dry. Come back with your eraser after this has a moment to dry. You can do the whole thing this way. Trace the whole picture. Then, when you're done tracing the whole picture, give it a minute to dry. Come in with your eraser and do your final erasing. And that's going to make your picture look really crisp and clean, and it'll be ready to color later.